Let's just beat everyone. Who cares if they're man or woman? So I think women have to stop feeling sorry for themselves and just say, listen, I've got to prioritize. Find me another man who can multitask as well as we do.
Hello and welcome to Rulebreaker. We're breaking the rules. And what rules are we breaking? That women come last. Nisha, thanks very much for joining me.
So excited to be here and love this concept.
I know. I just love having you here because I hear you've been breaking a lot of rules for your life. So
yes.
What rules did you break and why?
The first rule I ever broke when I was very young, I'd go up to these older men at these swimming pools and I'd say, do you want to race? And it's like a 10, 12-year-old girl asking these big grown men and they would be like, are you sure? And then I would thrash them. So I think that a little bit of that sadistic pleasure of beating somebody older than you who's male, right? So that's how my, love for competition started, right? Let's just beat everyone. Who cares if they're man or woman?
Thank God for all these uncles at the pool.
And trust me, they never show their face in the pool ever again. It's quite
That's
mean.
good. You managed to kill two birds with one stone, make some space, get the traffic out, and, well, I guess, win over. But, winning is everything in sport. I was watching a tennis star say this, that it's really hard to be a sports person because one person wins and everyone else fails.
Yeah. We have to deal with loss so often that at some point you realize, to hell with this. I'm doing this because I love the sport. You love the thrill of competing. But then you're losing so often, like you said. You just deal with it. So now I have no fear of failure. I don't have fear of what if. So the fear of consequence, the fear of the unknown is not there for athletes. So that's why I think we make such good entrepreneurs. We can just throw ourselves, headfirst into something that everybody wouldn't even dream of you doing. Like starting a swimming academy as a woman. A lot of people said, why don't you take the safe, public sector job or join one of Indian Oil? They're giving jobs to sports people. I said, how boring would that be, sitting behind a desk, doing something, working for somebody else who I don't feel, excited about. So I took, jumped headfirst into, starting my own academy, which is something no one expected. And then it paid off for me. So you have to take those risks.
Yeah, but not everyone has, to use some of these words that I'm just going to now obviously create in the deep end. Essentially, it's about your spirit and your ability to not just take a risk, but also say that I will break these rules along the journey because this is what everyone expects.
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk that path.
Exactly. And I think it started with my dad. Funnily enough, he always wanted to raise two strong girls. He's not the type who said, oh, I wish I had a boy. He was like, I'm going to make these girls the most fierce girls. So he reminds me a lot of, King Richard, like the Williams sisters, their dad, and he would always say, when you're competing, to hell with it, just don't worry about how old somebody is, if they're male or female, just go for it, do your best. So it started at that young age where I felt like I could do anything. So even when people told me I couldn't, my grandmom used to say, don't swim, you'll get tanned. Who will marry you? Can you marry from your own grandmom? And as a young kid, it affects you. And I used to be like, now looking back, I'm married to this wonderful guy. He's fair as ever. I'm tanned as ever. Nobody cares, So I think along the way, you have to realize some point to listen to your own voice and stop listening to the others. And also surround yourself with other people who support you, not just women, but men also. So I was lucky to have these people.
So what all were you stopped for? So the grandmother story.
Yes.
Second, the entrepreneur story. List them all out for me.
Yeah, I think everything from even traveling alone at nights, people will be like so worried. I'm so independent. I've lived in foreign countries when I was 17, 18. I would just stick my key ring through my fingers and God help anybody who came near me. Like I would give a fight, I would really fight. So my point is, nobody stopped me from doing what I wanted. And even when we talk about sacrifices, right? At the end of the day, they're actually choices. So I didn't miss out on those birthday parties and those, alcohol-fueled, parties of the teenage years. I chose to do something and I went full-fledged, And the few times that, when you finish something, you've achieved a dream, then I would just let go and go crazy. So there have been a few of those wild parties after I've done my swim meets. And then you're like, okay, I'm done. Now I can be this teenager who's, head banging to some rock music and listening to, some crazy music, dancing and just letting go. But till then, I was very, very focused. So I think we have dealt with politicians. In India, sports and politics is so hand in hand. So I've been told by the top federations in India saying, if you go and speak against the federation, that'll be the last swim meet that you ever do. And I've, in classic style, I've gone and said whatever I want to say with the press. That's why it's called the freedom of the press, right? I would go and say it, and then I'd win by so much that they can't disqualify me. They can't put somebody else in the team ahead of me. So at some point, they just gave up on me. And I started my business, and I have nothing to do with the federations, to show you that I can make my way. I don't need funding. I don't need the backing of a federation. I can do it on my own because I love what I'm doing. And I don't care, whether other academies get preference. We'll just do it on our own. So I think for women especially, there's this, people go on about you can't, So nowadays you see some real tough women football players. You see women we have a woman president. My God, anything is possible. At the same time, people are always telling you, and sometimes it's other women who are telling you can't do it. And just listen to yourself.
So a lot of the obstacles happen because you're a woman. And then a lot of the success happens despite you're a woman.
Yes, for sure. I mean, find me another man who can multitask as well as we do. My husband gets a call, and wherever he is, he just stops walking. And I have to push him you can walk and talk. So I feel these women are just all-round goddesses. We can do whatever we want. We can be cooking in one hand, the kid in another hand, brokering some deal on the phone. So I just feel that I have a lot of strengths, and I feel for me, the strength that I use is kindness. All these tough guys who think that this is the way to lead, or even, I find if you just talk to people and you kind of emote to them, you have a chat with them, and they feel like they're being seen. And that's it. You just break that barrier between you. So it's not even that you have to be this, tough, strong woman all the time. You can just be yourself, be relatable. And then people are kind of, I find with my staff, when they're getting engaged, and I say, hey, send me a picture of your fiancé. And they're so excited to do that, right? They're like, oh, wow, she really cares. And then, we discuss something like, oh, we should get her in the pool, we get her swimming. And that, I think, breaks that sense of barrier. So I think men don't do that as well as women do it. I think it comes naturally for us.
Yeah. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about health. I mean, you're such a solid icon for just staying focused on good energy.
Yeah.
And high energy. And the reason I ask you is because one of the things we all hear women say, I'm just so tired.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of my life. I'm so tired of all of this. There's just too much on my plate.
Yeah.
This is a recurring theme with women from who are top CEOs to women who are just working in shop floors or not working outside but working at home. Why do you think there is this permanent tiredness?
Yeah, I think, I'll speak from my own personal experience. As an athlete, we were taught that in those days, I'm talking about the 90s, that resting was bad. You're being unproductive. So I would make sure my calendar was so packed with stuff that I have nobody to blame but myself if I'm exhausted, right? I'm overdoing my, stuffing different events into my days, and some things I just could avoid. And my biggest issue is learning to say no. So this is something I think that has come only with maturity and age, because I'm this perpetual people pleaser. I want to make everybody happy. I want to be this, and then I realized during COVID that I enjoyed that solitary time, like sitting and Netflixing and chilling on the couch, reading a book was so enjoyable to me. I love reading. I hadn't read a book in years. And I said, who is there to blame but myself? So I think women have to stop feeling sorry for themselves and just say, listen, I've got to prioritize. And priority could be just sitting and doing nothing. It doesn't have to be packing something into your calendar, So that's where that tiredness comes from. So right now, even though I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I get my workouts done. Like, I feel physical activity is really important. For me, it's like, it's better than meditation. It's something that calms me down. It sets up my whole day. If I don't do my activity, I'm a bit of a grump, But I feel that you take that time out in the morning, and during the day, just find half an hour for yourself. Sometimes I tell my kids, they're 10. I was like, listen, you guys figure your own stuff out. There's cornflakes on the table. Get some milk, pour yourself a snack. I'm just going to lie down and have a sleep, And I used to feel guilty about saying that, but now I don't. So this is all, I think, two things. One was COVID, where I realized, wow, resting can make me feel better. I'm a better person. I'm more fun to interact with. And the second thing is I did a counseling course. So that taught me that, even the speed that I talk really fast. And my counselor would keep saying that's just from that level of anxiety as an athlete, always on the go, every minute of your day is scheduled. And she's like, just learn to relax, you can do nothing, you can be useless. That's not a bad thing, So for women, we are so amped up and we have to do all these things. And sometimes you reach a point where you're just burnt out, and that's a horrible place to be. You have to build it back up. So for me, it just came in the form of COVID, where I'm forced to sit at home. My kids telling me things like, Mom, I'm so happy that COVID happened because we got to spend time with you. That made me realize, okay, why am I just running behind? It's not that I'm obsessed with making so much money or coaching so many swimmers. You know, I'm just realizing that I put so much undue pressure on myself. So women have to stop complaining and take that power back and say, I'm going to change around things. And I finally learned to say no. If I can't do something, and I don't apologize, right? So I say, no, I can't make it to this event. I don't say, no, I have some other event, lie about it. I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do this event this time. Sorry. That's it. You know, I don't explain why. I don't make up stories. So yeah, I feel like I'm finally learning to ask for what I want, you know?
Yeah. So, you know, the thing about women is like, they often sometimes say, I mean, we as women often say, oh no, but I think I do enough work around the house.
Yeah.
I don't want any more physical labor.
Yeah.
At a point, I used to understand this until it started showing up on my body. And I said, that's not enough work for the body. We need to get in more physical motion.
Yeah.
Talk to us about why that is so critical and why women aren't paying enough heed to it.
You know, you would think as an Olympic athlete, I would have less issues, but I've had more issues. You know, I've never been at, my body weight used to be 50 kgs my whole life, you know. I could eat anything I want because I was training so much that my eating habits weren't necessarily healthy. So when I got pregnant, had my kids, I went up to 90 kgs and I was just so miserable. I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't jog without puffing and panting. And it took a Milind Soman who came and saw me once and said, girl, you better get your act together because, you know, you're looking like a wreck. I was like, but my kids, you know, I'm a new mom. He's like, how old are they? I said, almost 2 years. He said, that's really, come on, Nisha. I mean, you're an athlete. Get back into it. And the next time he saw me, I dropped 15 kgs. I put on muscle. But my message to women is stop obsessing about the weight and worry about the muscle mass, because that is what, when it declines solidly after your 40s. And I got into perimenopause very early. So last year when I was 41, I hit perimenopause and suddenly I was doing the hot flashes and my body temperature, you know, aches and pains, my eyesight, suddenly I have these prescription glasses and you feel like, you know, everything about you has changed. And nobody talks about it, right? Everyone's, you know, it's almost like a bad word. And so many people like whispering to me like, oh my God, are you going through perimenopause? How come? We thought you're fit. I said, it has nothing to do with it. Everyone's going to get it. And what helped me and what my doc has said has helped me not have major symptoms, like most of them have sorted themselves out. I now prioritize sleep. I'm doing 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So I use my Garmin tracker not for my steps. I use it purely to make sure I sleep, you know, enough. I'm getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And the main thing I'm doing is doing strength training. That's a game changer. So to the women out there, yes, cardio is great. Cardiovascular health is great. But don't just run. Lift some weights with a certified, you know, trainer, or with anybody who knows what they're doing, who can guide you.
Yeah.
Because I've seen women in their 60s and they're killing it and they're fit, they're trekking up mountains, and they can only do that if they have muscle mass, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, not everyone's going to go to the Olympics. It's not about being elite. It's about getting through these next 30, 40 years, being able to carry your own bags on holidays. You know, you don't need a man to open the door or open that pickle jar or jam jar.
Yeah.
You know, you just feel self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And that's all, even for my kids, for them to see their mom can do almost everything that they can do and sometimes beat them also. It's a bit of a, you know, oh, okay, you know, they keep saying, well, you're old, but I guess you're not bad. So for a 10-year-old, that's a big compliment. And you're not bad.
No, it's a huge compliment.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the things I keep wondering that we in India, we're very proud of our diet. You know, we don't eat like the Westerners. They're just shoving some processed food.
Yeah.
But there's something that the Westerners or the rest of the world, particularly women, have gotten right about routine, focus, and eating, I would say, a greater degree of protein-heavy diets.
Yeah, for sure.
In India, while we do very excitedly talk about the amazing vegetarian, you know, food that we have, sometimes it's just garbed in carb.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
And I'm just very curious about how you look at this. It'll be lovely to hear from you because you're the prescriptive person for how to fix this.
No, so you would think that I would have good eating habits, but growing up we had no access to nutritionists, sports nutrition. You know, there was hardly even computers to sit and, you know, what is good and what's not. So even I had a really high carb diet, which is fine when you're 18, you're a competitive athlete. But I'm finding now that if I don't eat my protein, and I hate eggs, but that's one of the easiest way to incorporate protein into your diet, right? So I would say you don't have to go overboard on these protein shakes and protein drinks, because that if you can eat as much protein naturally that you can, great. But like you said, we tend to automatically when we're tired or we're a bit exhausted, we tend to load up on the carbs.
Yeah.
And why do the European women have such great figures? One is they walk everywhere, which all of us could do with. I feel like every second we're jumping into an auto or a cab or a driver-driven car, and you're not getting those steps. When I go to Singapore or Dubai or anywhere abroad,
we are walking.
Yeah, you check your stats, you're like, wow, I'm at 16,000 steps. So we just need to incorporate that, take the steps up, to your house, and just simple things like eating, I think, more seasonal stuff. That's something we don't even think about, like eating. Yesterday we had a nutrition seminar for our athletes, and 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds are being taught now what's good and what's not good, hydration.
Yeah.
So I wish we, women had been taught this earlier, because it fueled our body better. Even to get to the end of the day, sometimes I feel like I have no energy left.
Yeah.
So what's helped me a lot, especially because I like my sugar and I like my sweet stuff, I'm one of those people who thinks, wow, if I died tomorrow and I didn't have that hot chocolate fudge ice cream, how sad would that be, right?
I know.
So
it's like
I love
me and
my
tiramisu.
Food. Yeah. So you've got to let go. So I don't believe you need to be so strict, but I need to feel you need to be very well balanced. So do your monthly checks. And if everything's in place, have a well-balanced diet. And occasionally if you're, fall off the wagon and, eat those, nice high-calorie things, it shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think we worry about the kids' nutrition, we don't bother about our own. So we need to really focus. Like, I'm trying to eat now what my kids are eating for them, and they're fueling for performance. I'm like, why not for myself? I train hard. I have to keep everything going, I have quite a hectic day, and I finish up pretty late in the night. So now I only fuel myself now to get through my day without being hangry, which I am very often if I don't get my food.
Yeah.
But I also do intermittent fasting, which is a huge thing for me, where I eat my 3 meals, well-balanced meals during the day, a little bit of sweet, I'm not going to lie, okay, since I'm on camera, I'll be nice and truthful today.
But it'll be also relieving for those who really
yes,
are
of course.
human.
I look at people who are, like, I know most sportsmen, Olympians, Olympic champions, who do cheat. You have to have those cheat days, otherwise you'll just be miserable, like, watching everybody eat some food that you are dreaming of.
Yeah.
Right? It's great to have those goals, but like live a little bit. When you're going out with some girlfriends and you say, hey, I'm sorry, I can't have that chocolate cake, it's your best friend's birthday, come on, just have that piece,
Yeah.
It's not going to make much of a difference. I know people who've had this super strict lifestyle, vegetarian, no drinking, no smoking, and they get cancer in their 40s and they die.
Yeah.
So you want to just have balance, like moderation in all things, right? That's like the way to go.
Fill your stomachs and your feelings.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So, okay, Nisha, you hit perimenopause at 41.
Yeah.
There is statistical evidence that women in India hit perimenopause much earlier than the rest of the world average of 51, 52, 55. And I anticipate that majority of the women in their 40s are borderline or very much there. They just don't know it.
Yes, I fully agree.
So in many ways, being aware of this is embracing it. I want to know more about that thinking.
So I think even something as we're always scrolling through social media, right?
Yeah.
Going through Instagram stories. I follow this great page called What the Menopause. And it's so insightful because, like you said, when I talk about my story about menopause, then this woman like, hey, wait a minute, I've been having issues sleeping. I've been having like itchy skin like for a long time. And I tell them, listen, there are 100+ symptoms. And a friend who's a doctor, he was telling me it's the least chronicle, diagnosed.
Yeah.
It's actually almost like a disease, right? That everyone's going to get. You can't escape it. It's just the varying degrees, and you can control it up to a point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to run your life, And it comes to a point where women are actually going through depression because of this, and they don't know. They don't have the support. So another friend and me were actually thinking about doing a video, and both of us just talking about the changes that we're going through. And just more people talking about it because, so many people talk about, pre-pregnancy, post-pregnancy. Where do you hear about, and they talk about, after menopause, but this perimenopause phase could be 2 years to 8 years.
Yeah. And hormonal crashes.
Exactly. And I remember like once, I'm quite the confident type and I don't panic easily. I was in a different state. I had gone for a swimming clinic and I just started feeling like hot flashes. I was feeling like very uncomfortable in my skin. I actually called my husband and said, I might just take a flight early morning. My flight was the next evening. He's like, you're being silly. I was like, no, I really need to be surrounded by people who I'm confident with. I didn't know many people in the city, so I didn't feel like I had anyone to lean back on. So I called this doctor friend, spoke to him for about an hour. He calmed me down and he said, what you're going through is normal. So even somebody like me who typically has used to living alone, to dealing with these things, even the physical, aspects, pain or uncomfortable feelings, we're used to it as sports people. but it really threw me off balance. And so it took a couple of months for me to kind of get back to my schedule. So now I'm really strict about sleep. So if I have to like miss out on that really cool party, like the other day I went for a party and my daughter was tired and I was like, do I want to stay and keep dancing or do I want to go and get my sleep? I was like, sleep, because I just know I'll feel better, you know. So it means choosing, you know, making different choices than you did earlier. But everyone is going through it, but in varying degrees. And like you said, it's starting earlier. I know people in their late 30s who finished, you know, they're done. They're already past, they're done with menopause and they're, you know. And it's not the end of life, you know.
So let me ask you this. So one of the things that one wonders is that clearly this is an area of not just knowledge gap, but where women need hand-holding. And that hand-holding isn't just solving menopause or perimenopause, because you can't solve it. You have to manage it. So it comes with a great degree of connecting the dots with nutrition, fitness, staying positive, right? So how did you get about the connecting the dots piece?
I actually just spoke to a lot of women, and some of them, like you said, were like me, just starting off this perimenopause, didn't even know, started reading up about it. But I think women who are also going through it, you need to ask for help. I think I'm really bad at asking for help. I try to be the one who does everything. So that's been the only change, like I think in my 40s, where I say, I don't know how to deal with this. And another friend recently, you know, they said you might have to have a hysterectomy. She's having perimenopause related issues. And, you know, I just spoke to a couple of other women who've had similar issues, put them in touch, and just that network. And this lady went through whatever procedures and she came and said, thank you so much, you're so emotional. So all it takes is just, you know, just like you said, connecting the dots, putting people together. And we should use this platform as well to just talk about it, because it's not a bad word. Everyone goes through it. And it doesn't mean you're weak. It's just that your body is changing. You know, and for an athlete especially, it really scared me. Like when I decided I was getting these first few symptoms, I went and signed up for a 50K run. You know, that's my way of saying, oh, I can still do it. But like you said, the symptoms aren't going to go away, you know. So you have to deal with the underlying issues. And there's so many that you just have to do the best you can. And you have to meet specialists, like, you know. So I went to a gynecologist, spoke to her. And then, you know, she said you don't need hormone injections because you eat health. What we ask people to do is to eat better, exercise more, and only the sleep was where I was lacking. So I've kind of, you know, to a large part solved that, and my symptoms are very manageable now. But I also give myself a little bit of time where if I sometimes, like, you know, post my, you know, my menstrual dates, I just feel like a truck has hit me. You know, and I could have been doing nothing. I'm not that I've trained very hard. I just feel I have zero energy. So those are one of those days I just take you know, one of those days at home, cover up with a blanket and micromanage, like ask my husband to do something, ask the kids to do something, and just say like, what is, you know, what's going to happen is going to happen. You know, just kind of let go of that. Everything.
So I hear something here, which I think a lot of us go through, is mood swings. Okay, I mean, I often hear this from women that it's probably the harder part of the menopause, perimenopause journey. And fitness, incidentally, and working out or running or some athletic activity is deeply linked to trigger changes in those mood swings that come around.
For sure.
I love to hear more on that.
I think even swimming, forget about even exercise, but swimming is almost meditative. And I feel a lot of women are choosing that now and they're getting older because they're realizing there's low impact. You know, you can do it at any age. Like we have a couple of women in their 60s, you know, who are learning and feeling really great. But what the main link, I feel two things. One is you have that element of connection. The second, you go to any exercise class, go to the gym, you know, go for a jog, you're always going to take a friend or another person along and you get to chat. And so you're doing this, it becomes enjoyable. You know, your heart rate goes up. And I think the main thing that helps with the mood swings is also not focusing so much on it, right? If you start getting stressed out about, oh my God, you know, how am I going to behave today? Here, if you're keeping yourself active, you're worrying about your heart rate, your squat form and your depth, and, you know, how many calories have I burned and what is my next movement? So it kind of gives you something else to focus on. So I would say not to, you know, start panicking about it, but I also say that a lot of people need to speak to counselors at this point of time. I feel like it really helps. And even when I was doing my counseling course, when I was training to be a counselor, I had to speak to a counselor. And I think having that and being able to speak openly, because it is very tough to be really honest, you know, and it happens easier if it's a stranger. So while you may not be able to let down your guards fully with your friends, you might be able to do this with a stranger. So if you're going through really bad mood swings where your entire life is being ruined by this, your family thinks you've gone crazy. I think ask your family to be, to be supportive in those times. That's the most that you can do, right? Try and educate them also about what's happening to you.
Yeah.
And like, so my daughters, even though they're 10, they know words like, periods and perimenopause. They've heard these terms, which we've never heard about,
Yeah.
Our parents would avoid talking about those things. So we as women have to just pass it on, and even to the older generation, who've suffered through this in silence, not knowing what they went through, get them also to share their experiences. Like sometimes you're at the brink, you feel like everything is falling apart. Just being able to talk and open up, at least for me, that's what really helped. Being able to talk to other women and be like, okay, so I'm not going, stir crazy. This is happening to everyone. And then, like I said, use social media for good, connect with women all around the world, and, use that kind of sense of community when you feel. Like COVID, how did everyone get through it? It's like you have, video calls and you're chatting with everyone. Like all of us are going through this and you get through it together.
Yeah.
So it's the same way. Imagine the millions of women worldwide who are dealing with these issues right now.
Yeah, that's
so then
true.
you don't feel so alone, like it's only happening to you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super lovely chatting with you, Nisha.
Thanks so much, Ali. Thank you.